Good morning, traders. It's Thursday, July 18th. Taking a look at the charts, just focus on the SP 500 to start here. And more or less, we've been talking about how the market is in this kind of upward channel. It's in a power zone. We've got lots of strength in the market. We are short term. We are oversold. Very similar to more or less a setup like we saw over here. And back in the charts, it'd be similar to something we saw over here. So we've got one of these type of setups. The big question is it of kind of a final pullback before we go into a deeper correction? And that's the big question. A lot of things are starting to point to this trend here is pretty much out of steam. Very similar time-wise from this past significant pivot low has occurred, and we're starting to see some of the leaders really kind of lead the way and tip it. The market's tipping its hand, giving us some pointers of which way the market is going to break. We've been talking about, let's take a look over at the industrials. I've been talking about how the industrials are underperforming. Yesterday, they were down very strong in the equities market. They tend to lead the market. If we look at the transportation index as well, here is the IYT. Huge down day in the transportation index as well. And if we take a look over at the Russell 2000, it started to break down a little bit yesterday, although I feel like this is a short-term little washout low, and we could see a rebound. But all those leading sectors there are starting to show some pretty strong distribution selling going on. And yesterday, obviously, we saw silver really break out. If we take a look at silver, it's really popped and extended up another percent today. If we look at gold miners, yesterday the gold miners popped out of this pattern, above some resistance. If we look at the junior miners, same thing, they popped yesterday. And if we look at the silver miners, SIL, another big pop and move today, breaking this previous high and breaking this previous high. So it looks like we've got a pretty nice momentum move in the market. You can see here on SIL, we saw pretty good volume moving into the sector in general yesterday. So the one that didn't move yesterday too much, as everybody's piling into the speculative plays first, is gold. We've seen gold; it's holding in this pattern. It is pulling back a bit today. Obviously, it's had lots of resistance in the past right here where it got up, sold down, came back up, sold down. It hasn't popped and broke out yet. Usually we see the leaders, the gold miners lead the way, and then physical gold follows suit. So I'm anticipating, we did get long gold. I'm anticipating we're going to see gold follow suit here soon and pop and break to the upside. Now, I did talk about this a few times in the past here. Let's just go back in time. We've seen a pattern that has unfolded up here last time. It actually happened over here. That similar type of price action is happening again right here. And so that's my only concern, is if this is a pop out, a break that is a false breakout, and then we go back and we see a much deeper correction in gold as it comes down into this major consolidation, stays in this upper range, builds a larger base to potentially go higher. But at this point, the leaders are all breaking out. We got to follow suit, and hopefully gold will pop and continue. But what we saw back over here in this last section of these moves is we saw gold trade sideways or lower, and the gold miners actually popped and started to break out. And then, of course, they followed suit, and we saw a much deeper correction. Oops, coming back down. Same thing over here. And that's what we're seeing now is gold's kind of trading sideways on the verge of breaking out. We're seeing gold miners pop and silver pop, just identical to over here. And we just got to be aware that we could start to see the market roll over fairly quickly if we don't have follow-through breakout. Now, this was a significant resistance area on the chart, and we have broken that. So we are at the next resistance area. If you look at this blue line, this is the next resistance area we've been stuck at. So we'll see if we can close and get above this and extend and continue to move up to that 1550, potentially all the way up to the 1750 going forward. But we got to take it one day at a time, and more or less the miners, metals are in a bull market now, and breakouts should have follow-through moves. Gold's just got to clear this resistance, and then we're really off to the races for that market. Looking over at, let's take a quick look at, let's go to crude oil. Crude oil is still chopping around, trying to find a bottom. If we zoom in on the chart here, the trend is still to the upside. We have had a pullback. It's over exaggerated, more or less a news-based pullback. And at this point, we're still at support. If we take a look over at the analysis chart, let's just pull this up. You can see where we are. Crude green bars, which means we are in an uptrend. It's on the verge of rolling over and breaking down, but you can see last time we got into this oversold level, it took a few surges to some new lows here over a couple of days to carve out a bottom. Same type of thing yesterday, news-based oversold, had a little tiny bounce, and then it's the rest of the market's kind of washing out. So hopefully we'll start to see this carve out a bottom, start to bounce, and we see a recovery back up to our first target somewhere right up in this area, and then somewhere back up to the upper end of this range going forward. Taking a look at the US dollar index, dollar's up a little bit this morning. Let's just go over to the daily chart. Dollar continuing to hold up. Yesterday, obviously, it pulled back, which really helped spark the move in metals. But overall, the safe havens are the dollar and the gold or precious metals at this point. And we're seeing the dollar continue to hold up. Metals are starting to break out. And we've seen this before where the dollar can trade sideways or grind its way higher. And we still see gold and silver and miners rally with the dollar. If there's enough money moving into metals, a rising dollar, it can really buck that trend, and you can see them both rise. And really, the safe havens here are still the dollar and gold going forward. And I think we could see them both hold their ground and move higher together for a little while going forward. Taking a look at the chart of the bonds, we can see here the bonds have gone neutral, and now they're in red trending, meaning it's struggling more or less. It's under some resistance here on the chart going forward, and I think it's trying to carve out a bottom. We could see continued volatility in the bonds. Overall, they're trying to carve out a bottom. Usually we'll see bonds pull back a bit as the stock market kind of puts in more of a top, and we could see bonds chop around down in this area, build a base, and then if the stock market starts to get softer, we're going to see bonds go back up to test these recent highs, potentially continue to go higher. So we're going to keep our eyes peeled for potentially bonds starting to reverse to the upside. Sorry, my mouse keeps sticking and drawing all over the place, but we'll be looking for bonds to start rotating to the upside again. It's had a nice run, it's had a nice pullback, and now it's just got to work itself out. Anyways, that's it for this morning. I'll talk to you in a little bit. Bye-bye.